Hello and welcome back to Vizura Recaps. Marcos is the first character in the movie. Marcos is a former special operations soldier turned driver and extremely skilled mercenary. He now lives in southern France and is dubbed the Transporter due to his profession. He is preparing to do his contract-mandated assignment of transporting 3 men from a private bank to a destination. The people who hired him as a driver turn out to be armed bank robbers. Marcos does not appear to bother because he will simply do his work and be paid as agreed. As a result, when he transports, he strictly adheres to 3 rules: never change the agreement, no names, and never open shipments. The bank robbers total 4, which breaches the agreement, and Marcos refuses to finish the task after informing them that he can only transport 3 people. The gang leader threatens Marcos with a gun, but he keeps calm and follows the terms of the agreement. He claims that the added weight will interfere with his well-planned departure, so he refuses to drive. As time runs out and the cops arrive, the leader kills one of his men and pushes him out of the car. When everything goes as planned, Marcos hits the gas. As a professional driver, he can traverse narrow alleys and overcome obstacles to avoid being apprehended by authorities. After successfully delivering the criminals to their destination, the leader, who is satisfied with Marcos's performance, offers him more compensation to drive them to Avignon. Marcos declines the offer, preferring to return to his home on the French Riviera. When he comes at home, he immediately cleans his car and replaces the license plate. We then discover that he keeps a secret closet full of false license plates that he routinely uses on the job. He watches a television news broadcast on the arrests of his former clients, who are attempting to leave overseas with their amateur driver. Following that, a local police investigator named Tarconi visits Marcos's home and inquires about his black BMW, which is identical to the vehicle used by the perpetrators as they fled the robbery scene. Tarconi eventually quits because he lacks solid evidence against Marcos. Marcos soon receives a call from a potential client in need of his services. At night, he meets the man and agrees to deliver a box weighing 50 pounds to an American named Darren Betancourt. Marcos wants a sum of $40,000 in advance, which the man accepts. The following day, the package is loaded into Marcos's trunk. He notices the package moving as he prepares to repair the flat tire and take the spare tire out of the trunk. At this point, he violates the 3rd rule by opening the package and discovering a Chinese woman tied and gagged. He pours a glass for the woman and goes on his way. However, the woman taps on the trunk of the car in the middle of the road, and when he opens the gag in her mouth, the woman named Liza informs him that she needs to pee. He takes the woman out of the trunk, feeling bad for her. However, Liza attempts to flee, prompting him to act quickly to arrest her. When he brings her to the car, 2 police officers discover him and force him to paralyze them before placing Liza in the trunk, where she faints. Marcos arrives at his destination after a long journey and delivers the item to Betancourt as promised. When Betancourt asks if he's opened the item, Marcos lies and says he has not. When he's about to depart, Betancourt offers him another job transporting a suitcase, which happens to be on the same route back to Marcos's house, so he agrees. He briefly pauses on the way to dine and buy drinks for the cops in his trunk. As he prepares to get back into his car, it explodes, killing the police officers in the trunk. It turns out that a bomb designed to kill Marcos was placed in the briefcase Betancourt gave him in order to silence him about the consignment he was transporting. An enraged Marcos returns to Betancourt's location, killing and injuring a slew of goons. Marcos then snatches one of the escape vehicles, only to find Liza chained and gagged in the backseat. He lowers her, still bound and gagged, to the middle of the road. However, he soon feels sorry for her and returns to take her up. He takes her to his house, gives her food and a place to sleep for the night, and then asks Liza to leave the next day. When Marcos goes to bed, Liza stealthily examines his luggage and discovers that he is a former Air Force soldier who is well-trained. She also believes that he is a wonderful person. Meanwhile, Betancourt pays a visit to one of his guys, who is still alive in the hospital, to determine who attacked his home. Betancourt kills his guys after discovering Marcos was the one who attacked his home. Tarconi returns to Marcos's house, where Liza prepares breakfast for him. Tarconi suspects Marcos after his automobile was found on fire near here, with the bodies of the police officers located in its trunk. Marcos claims he went to the area the day before and had his car stolen while he was there. Tarconi is skeptical and asks him again. However, Liza appears and supports his alibi, revealing herself as the chef's new girlfriend. Tarconi eventually leaves his home, unable to find any evidence linking him to what happened to his car. Marcos requests that Liza leave his residence. However, Betancourt and his forces launch an indiscriminate gunfire attack on Marcos's home. Marcos immediately takes Liza to a safe area. Betancourt orders his forces to launch missiles at Marcos's house, where Marcos and Liza are present. When the missiles are fired at them, they just make it to the underwater channel, where Marcos had arranged his diving gear for an emergency, before swimming to the next safe house. The following day, Inspector Tarconi summons Marcos and Liza to the police station for an interrogation about what happened to his home. Tarconi questioning him about the person who attacked his home. However, he argues that because he was swimming in the sea with Liza at the time of the incident, he had no idea who it was. Tarconi is once again dubious of his statements. His interview, however, is cut short when one of his men notifies him that the police commissioner wants Tarconi to see him right away. When Tarconi leaves his office, Liza takes advantage of the opportunity to access his computer and acquire information about Betancourt, which he shares with Marcos. Tarconi releases Marcos and Liza since he does not have enough evidence to keep them at the police station any longer. Marcos, who had been presumed dead by Betancourt, wants to put an end to all of this by reconstructing his villa and establishing a new life, and advises Liza to do the same instead of becoming more involved with Betancourt, putting their lives in risk. She claims that Betancourt is a human trafficker who held 400 Chinese people captive in shipping containers, including her father and brothers. He'd enslave and sell them. When Marcos hears this, he feels sorry for her and resolves to help her save her family. They go to Betancourt's office. When Marcos comes, he immediately assaults Betancourt and holds a gun at him, while Liza searches for documentation related to the container housing 400 Chinese, including her family. Betancourt tells Marcos that Liza's father, Kwai, is a human trafficker and business partner. Now Marcos believes Liza misled him. When Kwai and his men come, Liza holds a revolver at her father. She eventually obeys her father's commands and puts down her weapon. Kwai's thugs grab Marcos, and Betancourt informs him that the container contains just 395 Chinese. Tarconi goes into Betancourt's office and finds Marcos unconscious after discovering information about him on his computer. When Tarconi arrives, Kwai and Betancourt accuse Marcos of kidnapping Liza and trying to blackmail them. Tarconi orders his men to stop and murder Marcos, and he forces Marcos to tell him what happened. Marcos informs him about the hundreds of Chinese people being held in containers and set to be sold as slaves by Betancourt and Liza's father. Tarconi promises to assist Marcos escape from prison and poses as a bogus hostage before freeing him, recognizing Marcos will not be restricted by a search warrant and will be able to solve the case faster than the police. Marcos, who had planned everything, follows Betancourt and his gang to the Marseille docks, where the containers will be loaded onto trucks. However, he is discovered, and a gunfight between him and Betancourt's thugs becomes necessary. Marcos gets into trouble when he attempts to stop the truck by hopping on it, and Betancourt's men manage to knock him out. Marcos will then face Kwai's goons, who have surrounded him with razor-sharp weapons, as well as Betancourt's best fighter, who is incredibly difficult to defeat. He is finally able to defeat them all, utilizing all of his combat abilities. Betancourt deploys his armed men to pursue Marcos, prompting him to run and drown in the ocean. After that, he grabs an old automobile and attempts to follow the truck that is transporting the container. As dawn breaks, the rusted automobile comes to a rest on the lonesome country road. Marcos heads straight toward a farm as soon as he sees a small plane flying in that way. Marcos confronts the owner of the plane with a gun and orders him to fly him onto the highway while following a truck carrying containers. After getting close enough, Marcos jumps out of the plane and parachutes directly into one of the autos. He quickly brings the truck driver to the ground. Betancourt, on the other side, arrives and attempts to stop Marcos. Following a drawn-out deadly struggle, Betancourt and 3 of his goons are killed when Marcos tosses them out of a moving truck, effectively ending the battle. After regaining control of the truck, Marcos drives it to a secure spot and unloads its contents. However, when he is about to leave the truck, Kwai points a gun at him and leads him to the brink of a cliff, intending to cover up his crime. Kwai's daughter broke his commands and allied with the slaves, so he orders his troops to kill Liza. Liza eventually rescues Marcos and, against her better judgment, takes a gun to her own father and murders him. Inspector Tarconi and the rest of the police come, rescue the prisoners kept captive in the 2 containers, and congratulate Marcos on his efforts. That was the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more material like this, and please press the like button to assist us. Also, if you want us to recap your favorite movie, leave a comment. Take care until the next time.